Hello there. The new Labour administration is warning that we must be ready to defend ourselves against the deadly quartet of Russia, China, Iran and North Korea. Then they just sit back and do nothing. Why? Yes, we're told the nation must be ready to take on the global military and conquest aspirations of the dreaded quartet of China, Russia, North Korea and Iran. And we're being fed with stories to back that up. Russian TV presenter Yevgeny Popov has threatened the UK with nuclear Armageddon and listed 7 key targets that would be hit first in the event of World War III, the Express excitedly reported yesterday. So while the government and press try to instill the fear of war into us, the best we get from both the previous Tory government and now the Labour lot is to increase defence spending from 2% to 2.5%, either by 2030 or when we can afford it. Either there's a real threat or they're just trying to scare us. Maybe scare us into agreeing to join up with the EU Joint Armed Forces setup and put our forces personnel under the direct control of Brussels, maybe. Is that what this defence review is really all about? Has the final conclusion already been written? That for our survival we must join the EU defence structure, despite already being members of NATO. And at least during the health emergency, our political masters had the good grace to spend vast amounts of our money on it to back up their scaremongering. But not this time over defence. Why not? But our politicians are going to increase internal defences and physical protection in Whitehall, Westminster and politicians' offices and abodes to protect them from the fictitious threat of the far right, aren't they? Now don't get me wrong, I do think the UK does need to significantly increase its defence spending even without an imminent threat. But what we're hearing from government are conflicting messages of impending World War III, so we need a defence review. But we can't afford to up defence spending for years to come to address any concerns in that review and deal with any threat. Either the threat is impending and needs funding and manpower now, or it isn't. No, what we're going to have is a defence review delivered at pace. You know, like those other government inquiries that take years if not decades to complete before they're overtaken by events. Unless it is being used to get us into the EU defence setup, then that will be done very quickly and very secretly. But you want to know something? The military itself is continually reviewing its own performance after every single operation and exercise. And that goes for the intelligence services and the police too. They are well aware of the threat and their own equipment shortcomings and personnel shortages. They are probably penning classified reports to ministers on the subject every single day. But no, we'll kick the can down the road with a review. Now, defence reviews are all about identifying not only what we need, but also what we don't need and where savings can be made. And it's that last bit that Labour ministers will be most interested in, what they can ditch and where they can strip out spending so more money can be spent on woke stuff. Any extra spending needed can wait until we can afford it. And the review will no doubt highlight the need for a massive expansion in diversity, equity and inclusion officers. And that is the one area of extra expense that Labour will sign up to, at the double. Now we're all being constantly told that the first duty of government is to protect the people. Doesn't that give you a warm, fuzzy feeling that all our defence agencies out there, from the armed forces to GCHQ to the police, are all there just to ensure your safety and well-being? But wait for the inevitable shock. The first duty of government is not to protect its people. It never has been. Let me explain. There is an unspoken, real first duty of government, a first duty that is actually hidden, as ever, in plain sight. And that first duty is to protect the people and infrastructure that makes up the apparatus of state. Yes, the first and foremost duty of government is to protect the ongoing survival of the state itself. Because, as the thinking goes, without a state command structure, the people can never be protected. Or, more accurately, the structure of state must survive to enable it to marshal the people into uniform so they can protect themselves. The survival of the state must come first, even in exile if need be, so that the state can then be in a position to act as the focal point for the people to fight for. The reality is that our political masters take the view that they at the top must be protected from harm at all costs, so that they can then be seen to protect us. Our political masters and their advisers and their Whitehall mandarins all realise this. But I'm not sure they realise the symbiotic relationship of truth, trust and openness that is required to make that symbiotic relationship work properly. In fact, in my opinion, woke has destroyed what was left of that. But a soundbite of making it look like they care about the rest of us is a fluffy thing to waft about occasionally, isn't it? And this is usually couched in clever wording, as used, for example, in the Labour Party election manifesto. Labour believes the first duty of any government is to keep the nation safe and protect our citizens. Notice what comes first, the nation, not the people, and that gives it all away. Now, in reality, the best way to defeat an enemy is to take its political and military leadership out in one fell swoop, early surgical strikes, before moving in to mop up. So if there was a real threat, our political masters would be very keen to up defence spending to defend themselves and the monarchy, wouldn't they? But our political masters are not upping defence expenditure immediately to start the process of protecting themselves, are they? No Iron Dome for Whitehall, for example. Now, if they are not even protecting themselves from this fast-growing and imminent Russian, Chinese, Iranian and North Korean threat, you have to ask yourself, is there actually a real threat? You have to ask, don't you? I mean, if these ministers who've ordered a defence review at pace thought there really was an imminent threat, they'd already be buying the defence equipment and hiring the people that all the internal classified defence reports are asking for, wouldn't they? Unless, of course, they think that the mere exercise of having a review will deter our enemies. Now, we've been hearing this talk of imminent war for months, if not years. But back in April it came out that no one within the previous Tory government could be bothered to take part in an exercise to practice evacuating into a bunker in the event of war. In the end, rather depressingly, it was just defence ministers, senior military officers and MOD officials that participated, said former Defence Minister James Heappey. And he went on to say that was a shame, because it would have exposed how outdated our procedures now are. So what are we to make of it when our politicians don't feel the need to follow the route of self-preservation in the face of threats they are warning us about? Either they have access to comfy post-apocalypse accommodation that none of the rest of us know about, or they are blissfully ignorant of the truth of the threat, or they know there is no real threat. Or maybe they think it's a nice, safe way to get us back into the European Union. Or do they have unwavering faith in our nuclear capability and NATO to deter all aggression? If so, why all the scaremongering? Do they think that putting huge US air bases in the UK will deter our enemies or protect us from attack? If so, why all the scaremongering? Do they have faith in the armed forces of Europe to halt any aggression getting near us? If so, why all the scaremongering? Have we got some top secret wizard new weapon that ensures our victory in all circumstances? All this apocalyptic scaremongering, but no clear way ahead. What is going on? Or is there something darker at play here, where most of us are destined to be the losers?